Hello guys, and today we will speak about three very different countries, Syria, Georgia and Moldova. All of them are located quite far away from the front lines in Ukraine, but very important battles for the defeat of Russia take place there right now. You know, as an ordinary Ukrainian, I was really surprised to learn about these fast advances of anti-Assad forces in Syria. But I'm sure it was also a big surprise for intelligence agencies, military experts, and most importantly for the Kremlin dictator himself. Losing Syria, he is not just humiliated, he loses control over a bigger region and access to very important military bases. People of Georgia right now very clearly illustrate they don't want back to the monstrous USSR. They will defend their democratic European future, and we totally understand them what they mean. And it is super important to help them defeat this pro-Russian turn. And in Moldova, recently, Russia did everything to hijack the elections but failed. And if we look at the Russian situation in three of these countries, we clearly see they lose the influence, and that's important. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia and protect yourself against their hybrid warfare in your countries, subscribe. We will discuss all of that on the channel. And let's start with Syria. Honestly, I'm an ordinary professional Ukrainian. I don't know much about Syria, but I've heard a lot about Aleppo, a 2 million city that was erased with the help of Russian aviation. Assad's regime would not survive a month without Putin's forces. And Aleppo reminds me of the tragedy of Mariupol. It was actually before Mariupol and was a very big red flag illustrating that Putin, Assad and all the dictators are a cancer on this planet. But people were concerned, observed, and we have many more cities destroyed by Russia, and if we don't defeat and demilitarize them, there will be more. I don't want that. And I realize that the guys that fight against Assad are not perfect, but in this case, the enemy of my enemy is good for the defeat of Russia. Syria was totally backed by Moscow. They had lots of military bases, lots of Russian soldiers there, and right now they illustrate the weakness of the falling empire because they flee the country very quickly, leaving lots of equipment, armored vehicles, and even aircraft. There are tons of photos, military photos of these forces hijacking or getting Russian ammunition like for free because Russians are running. Assad gave it a try, visited Moscow, but Putin does not have power, energy, and most importantly, money, because Russian economy is collapsing. Remember to watch the videos about that too, to see the bigger picture. But what is important about Putin's failure in Syria? One of the greatest in his political and criminal career. He loses access to important naval and avia bases, and thus control of the whole Middle East and African zone, where he wanted to show off as a Russian bear when he is a Russian rat. And I am sure that quite soon they can actually get Damascus, which is the capital of Syria, and that will end the regime of Assad. Assad was working hard to back up Putin, to support his illegal annexation of Crimea. He was speaking everywhere where he was allowed because he was also sanctioned as a dictator. But the last advice that I want to give you about Assad, don't Google him. I did that yesterday because I realized I don't know much. And I had like a nightmare. So don't read about dictators before you go to bed, but better subscribe to demonstrate your solidarity with the brave people of Ukraine, the brave people of Georgia who stand against the Russian evil, and share these videos on your social media platforms. This helps spread the information and protect more people against hybrid warfare of the Kremlin. In Georgia, we see great protests of very brave people who inspire and remind us about the revolution of dignity. I loved one quote where a beautiful Georgian woman was saying that this pro-Russian fake results of the elections and those who support them are actually serfs of the serfs, because you know serfdom is a typical behavior in the Muscovy Empire. And recently they had elections. The results were severely falsified. There are lots of proof for that. Approximately 15% was stolen by the pro-Russian Georgian Dream, actually organized and totally supported by the richest person in Georgia, which is always a bad sign. And people went out on the streets when this party decided to freeze the Euro integration of Georgia. And not just that, actually ban lots of EU-funded programs which are vital in post-Soviet, corrupt countries, because they help to watch, like, you know, these watchdogs, they help to clear media, police, courts. I know how it works in Ukraine, because if it had any connection to former oligarchs or to Russia, you cannot investigate, you cannot write, you cannot show. Georgia has like close to less than 4 million people. That's not a lot. And if you look at the number of people on the streets, literally in every big city, not just Tbilisi, you will be impressed. And this is definitely a very big illustration that another brave European anti-communist nation asks you to support our future in the democratic world. No, we don't want back to the USSR. We don't want to be hidden behind the Iron Curtain like, whoa, 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 get away, we are afraid of something. No, be afraid of Russia that gets what it wants. There are nations that are brave and strong enough to fight against this bully, and just help us. Just trust in us, please. That's important. And Moldova is a country that borders with Ukraine, is the country that was a part of the USSR, is the country that is also suffering from Russia, because, an important reminder, close to 20% of Georgia is controlled by the so-called quasi-republics of Abkhazia and South Ossetia, which are similar to DPR and LPR, funded and created by Russia, and Moldova has Transnistria. All of these quasi-republics, which are serious problems for the legitimate governments of Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, are Russian projects. So, despite all the hybrid warfare in Moldova, people supported the pro-EU choice and Maya Sandu as the president. That is a great victory for us in Ukraine, for people in Europe, for people freedom-loving in the world, and that is a failure for the Kremlin. And an illustration that in this quite big part of the world, Russia is the problem, not Georgia with its protests, not Ukraine with its war, as people sometimes sinfully say, but Russia. If you take away the factor of constant Russian bullying, violence, you have a safe region that Ukraine, extremely militarily advanced country, is ready to protect. So I honestly think we belong to NATO and NATO belongs to Ukraine. Support our NEFO campaign. We are less than 10,000 to the achievement of our goal and supporting one of the bravest Ukrainian 67th Brigade. And I'm very grateful and I'm very proud that we can do it together. Please support. It's very, very important and it's very, very inspiring in this challenging times. Join me on X, I'm fighting there, on Discord, Threads, Instagram, and our Blue Skies community is growing really quickly. Check our merch shop for lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine, but are also perfect Christmas gifts. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel, but most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Together we will win. Slava Ukraini!